Well, this is a bit of a turn up for the books. This is a rugby story I did not expect to be reading. A return to traditional, old school style rugby tours between nations. Would love it if it did happen. Discussions have started between South Africa and New Zealand. The chief exec for New Zealand, Mark Robinson, has said that, we're exploring the possibility of New Zealand hosting South Africa and South Africa hosting New Zealand on a 4-year cycle, much like the British and Irish Lions do, to kind of cement the rivalry between these two nations. It would involve, I think, 3 test matches and midweek matches against provincial teams as well. How awesome would that be? It feels like it's going against the current of the way rugby is moving at the moment. And I am here for it. I love the kind of romance and the history and the tradition and just the rugbiness of those old-fashioned style tours. It's one of the reasons why later this year I will be heading out to South Africa. A couple of trips to South Africa actually, but one of them I wanted to be there for South Africa versus Ireland. I mean, partly because it looks like Ireland are going to cement their position as the best in the Northern Hemisphere, and South Africa, well, they won a World Cup a few months ago. You can't argue that they're the best in the South. The big North v South ding-dong in Pretoria and Durban. I'm going to be there for those 2 test matches. And by the way, just while I mention it, thank you so much for all of the emails I've received, all of the people getting in touch, offering me to come over for a braai, offering advice on how and where to travel to and stay and all the rest of it. And if I haven't got back to your email yet, I will do soon. I've been quite busy and there's a lot which I've been blown away by, frankly. My email address, though, is contacteggchasers@gmail.com. And I would love to hear from you if you think you can help in any way. Because, coming out for Ireland v South Africa, the big North v South battle. And what I had in my mind is that this might be the last of the tours, the last of the traditional tours. And I'll come on to why in just a minute, because it all concerns the new format of competitions in World Rugby moving forward. And there's been some amazing tours when you look back only in very recent years. That Ireland tour to New Zealand in, 2022? Incredible. Absolutely incredible 3-match series. And I would be really sad if these things become just a relic of rugby's past. I want to keep them alive and well if we can. I also understand the importance of growing the game and giving opportunities to other nations. But I just I wonder sometimes, is actually what's going on, the new formats are coming around to try and grow the game, or are the new formats and ways of doing things coming around to just try and make the most amount of cash? Which I'm not against either, but I do love this stuff. And when I think about traditional tours, I was kind of thinking with those sort of going out of international rugby, the last bastion of traditional rugby tours is going to be the British and Irish Lions. And even that's had its kind of reputation damaged a little bit. The 2021 tour with no crowd, no travelling fans, that wasn't quite what the Lions has come to represent, and not able to do the same travelling around into communities while they were in South Africa in 2021. And the British and Irish Lions tour next year, well, it could be a bit of a stinker unless Australia pull their finger out and actually deliver on the potential that they have got as a rugby playing nation. It could be a bit of a bloodbath. I hope it is not the case. So but the Lions is what we've got. Or is it? Because like I say, this new idea is on the table. And these 2 teams are the biggest of rugby rivals. It's one of the biggest rivalries in sport, full stop. And these rivalries, this history, this edge between fans, and actually, when I was out in France at the Rugby World Cup, I spent a lot of time with South African fans there and New Zealand fans there, and I really, really got, when they were speaking to me, the deep respect that these 2 nations have, these 2 sets of fans have, the sets of players have for each other. And that is on the back of how good these nations have been for so long. They are the 2 best rugby nations, and it's almost like they need each other in a way. They kind of feed off each other. And so I love that they're trying to make more out of that rivalry. And when I think about sport in general, those rivalries are what it's all about. That's what the fans love. That's what the players love. Those are the games that people want to play in. Those are the matches that people want to watch. And when I think about other sports that I'm into, NFL, when I was a kid, liked the colour of the New York Jets kit. So New York Jets are my team. I've regretted that ever since because they're bobbins. But, so the point being, the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears are not my team. When these guys play each other, I want to watch that match because I understand how much it means to the fans. I understand what it means to each city and to the players because the history and the edge on the line in that match is palpable. It's exactly the same with Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. That's a game I want to watch. The fans go bananas for it. And it's the same with South Africa against New Zealand. I'm going to be in Cape Town and in Johannesburg for the 2 tests between South Africa and New Zealand because I want to witness that for myself in one of these 2 countries. I would love it if there were more opportunities for me to do that in the future and all of us to do that with these traditional tours. But I'm saying all of this and I'm saying I'm excited about the thought of it happening. I'm still thinking, I don't think it will though, because the year that's been suggested is that it could start in 2026. But what else is happening in 2026? Oh, another rivalry. I live in Manchester. Manchester United, Liverpool. It's dynamite every time those 2 teams play. I don't support either of them, but I know how much it means to the people that live around me. Anyway, yeah, 2026. Probably the chances of it happening pretty slim because 2026 is also the year when the World League is going to start, or whatever they're calling it, the World Rugby Nations League. This is where, and I don't even think they've ironed out the format of it yet, but the principle of it is that the top 12 teams, the best 6 in the Northern Hemisphere, best 6 in the Southern Hemisphere, so it's the 6 nations, and the Rugby Championship teams plus Fiji and Japan will play against each other in an annual tournament where they all play each other once. The 6 nations teams play each other in the 6 nations, obviously, and then there are 6 fixtures that happen, and the Rugby Championship teams play each other in the Rugby Championship. I don't know how Fiji and Japan fit into that. They must be expanding that competition. I don't know. But anyway, then there's 2 test windows that we currently have, July and November. And in July, the Northern Hemisphere teams will travel to the south and play 3 of those teams. And then they will play the other 3 teams who travel to them in November. So, for example, England could have a game against Argentina in Buenos Aires and South Africa in Cape Town and then Australia in Sydney. And they'll play those games in July. And then the other 3 teams, New Zealand, Japan, Fiji, would come to Twickenham in November. If you get what's going on there, I think that's pretty much summed it up. And my issues with this tournament, I get what they're trying to do. It's replicating what football have done a little bit. They're trying to create a bit of a competition, but I think I've already touched upon one of the issues there when I described what a team might have to do. The travelling could be off the charts, insane. Imagine if you had to, in the month of July, go and play in Argentina, New Zealand and South Africa, maybe in back-to-back weekends. That is bonkers. So I'm dubious about it from that point of view. I'm also dubious about it because I just worry, will it dilute the importance and the significance and the interest in the Rugby World Cup? I'll tell you what, either one of 2 things will happen. Either it will dilute the importance, significance and interest in the Rugby World Cup, or people won't really care about this as much as they want them to. Because consider, the first Rugby Nations Championship, whatever it's called, is going to be in 2026. So in November of 2026, we'll have a grand final and crown a winner of this. And then 11 months later, you'll crown the winner of the Rugby World Cup. And then another year after that, you'll crown another winner of this. With all that travelling that I kind of mentioned, I could see a situation where when the teams have to travel north, they don't take their full team because they don't want to have all that travelling and all that stuff in their legs. I suppose it's less of an issue coming north because all the countries in the 6 nations are so close together, but it's a massive issue when you're heading south. Anyway, I get what they're trying to do. Another issue is they're not allowing promotional relegation until 2030. My worry about that is less that they're waiting 4 years and more that in those 4 years they'll just decide they're not going to do it at all, because that's the kind of thing that rugby administrators have done in the past and you wouldn't put past them, would you? So anyway, for lots of reasons, I'm a little bit dubious about this format. I'm prepared to have my mind changed on that. I see what they're trying to do. I just don't know. But when I think about those old school tours, yes, maybe for some new rugby fans, it's harder to kind of grab hold of what's going on here with this match. Is this a tour? Is this a friendly? Is this a part of a league, a trophy? I understand all that. But there's something very special about it. This is a match programme from when New Zealand travelled to play Llanelli on a tour. Still the game that Llanelli fans in South Wales will talk about more than any other. Because this, you know, they didn't win a trophy for this, they didn't win a league, they've won many of them in the past, but this was the big moment for Llanelli as a rugby club. They beat the mighty All Blacks years ago. Same happened, I'm in Manchester, but just over in Yorkshire, there was a game when the north of England beat the All Blacks, and that was a famous moment, around about 1980 I think that was. And more recently, you might remember when Munster played New Zealand, and when the All Blacks were doing the haka, Doug Howlett and the other Kiwis in the squad stepped forward to do it as well. These are special and rare things, and tours between South Africa and New Zealand have been special and rare things. There's only been 13 of them ever. They play each other a lot in the Rugby Championship, of course, but these old school tours, well, there's been 13 of them, and you can't separate the two nations. There's 5 wins apiece, 3 draws. And have a look at the very first one, 1921. 3 tests in New Zealand. New Zealand won the first one in Dunedin. The Springboks came back and won the second one in Auckland. Decisive final test match. Imagine the excitement in the week building up. It's all on the line for this one. We're going to Wellington. We're in the capital. South Africa against New Zealand. Come on, 0-0 draw. I love it. I've never watched a 0-0 draw. Bizarre, amazing. But look, I'd love the idea of South Africa going to New Zealand and then in the week playing against the Crusaders or the Blues or whatever it may be. And the same goes, the New Zealand playing against Western Province or whether it's Stormers or whoever it may be. I love all that. It's fantastic. And I will just finish this video with this mention of an article that was published today in the Times in England. And it makes me feel great, this one. But I think it's part of a trend. What this article is saying is the RFU in England, or the Premiership Rugby, in England, have realised and admitted they've got their marketing of rugby in the UK or in England all wrong. Because what they've tried to do in the last few years is play down the physicality, not talk about the massive hits, not celebrate huge, giant hits and talking about super athletes and all the rest of it. Just quiet about all that. You might scare some mums off and they might not bring their kids to play rugby. They've realised, no. The reason people play rugby and the reason people watch rugby is because of the amazing physicality of the athletes, is because you need to be really brave, is because of the risk that's involved. As a mate of mine says, the risk is the reward in rugby. I talk about this all the time on the channel. How many times have you heard me banging on about rugby needs to stop apologising and actually celebrate being physical and celebrate the physicality and the massive athletes and the huge hits. What have I said before on the channel? There's tons of videos in the channel where I've said rugby's for anybody, but it's not for everybody. It's a special type of person that steps out onto a rugby field. And because it's a special type of person that steps out onto a rugby field, that's why people love watching it, because these are very, very special athletes, very special men and women. So I'm loving this article, and the reason I mention it now, and I might do another video on this in a little bit more depth, but it just leads me to believe when you link it together with this story about the All Blacks and the Springboks maybe playing against each other in each other's backyards on tours, old school tours, just feels like there's a trend towards tradition in rugby. And I think that for all the reasons I mentioned about the things people love about sport and rivalries, I think that's a great thing. So I hope it comes off. Long way to go before it does. But that's my thoughts. What are yours? Down in the comments. While you're there, give the video a thumbs up. That really helps spread the word. And if you haven't already, I'd love it if you'd hit subscribe on the channel. I'll see you on the next one.